Hello, I'm Bert Oliver, and welcome to Bowie News and Views. And co-host John Rouse, who's been missing lately, is here to introduce our guest.
My pleasure, and I'm sorry to have been away from you, Bert, but I just couldn't take too much. You know, I needed a break.
Thank goodness. We missed you anyway.
Yeah, right. I'm pleased, and I'm sure Bert is as well, to have Todd Turner with us, who's no stranger to anyone watching this show, I'm sure. He's a fixture in the city of Bowie. Unfortunately, he has a propensity for saying that he represents the heart of Bowie, which he does not. Maybe the gallbladder, but not the heart of Bowie. Love it, Bowie is the heart.
Good.
But at any rate, Todd is here to explain to us the rather confusing mechanism of replacing Geraldine Valentino Smith, who is going to be our new state delegate from District 23A. That creates a vacancy in that seat, the at-large seat, which is a rather important seat. Todd is seeking that along with 25 other people, most of whom I don't even know. But we thought that with his background, he's a former mayor pro tem, he's been a city councilman forever and a day, we thought we would have him come in and explain to us just what's going on. Todd?
All right. Well, thanks, Bert, and thanks, John, again, for the opportunity and to talk a little bit about not only the position and what the process is, but also why I've decided to throw my hat in the ring for this opportunity. Obviously, under the city charter, if there's a vacancy in a current city council position or the mayor's position, depending on when that vacancy occurs, the council will either have to call for a special election, or if it's less than a year before the election, they get to appoint that vacancy, a person to fill that vacancy. So that's in the situation with Geraldine being successful.
They could have left it empty until November of next year.
There's an option also under the charter. It just simply says that you have the opportunity. This is if you're going to fill the vacancy. These are the two options that you have, depending on what the time frame is.
Right.
And that since it's less than a year before the next election, November 2011, we're going through this process. And I was, I guess, fortunate enough, but since my time on the council, we've had one vacancy, and that was in District 1, and went through that process. And that's kind of formed the basis for the appointed process that we're going through now, where we announce the opening, the vacancy, anybody who qualifies, in this case, since it's an at-large position, anybody within the city, as long as you're 18 years of age and you've lived in the city for at least a year, you are eligible to, run for office, but also eligible.
And it looks
therefore.
like some of those people are taking advantage of it too.
And I was talking to somebody recently about it that at the time that we had the vacancy in District 1, which the council appointed Jimmy Marcos to, I think we had about 7 or 8 candidates, and that was just for one of the districts. And obviously we have 4 districts, as well as the 2 at-large members and the mayor as our 7-member council. So you would think roughly, with an at-large vacancy, that's 4 times as many opportunities for people. So you're looking at, and I think everybody was generally surprised that we had 25 candidates come out for that. But maybe that bodes well for additional interest. One of the things that reminds me of what happened when we did with the District 1 vacancy, a lot of people came forward who I personally was not familiar with a lot of times, had some community service and civic duty kind of activities, but what you discovered was that people never followed up, that they never ran, when the vacancy occurred. So not to say, I think that's a factor in making a determination about who you appoint, because you don't want anybody just to serve that term and not be successful when they have to go before the voters for the city election. So that's one of the factors I think that the council will look at all the applicants that have applied for this position.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'd not really thought about that much, but there is a lot of people.
We have a notoriously low voter turnout.
Yeah.
And it's interesting if you put it into, I guess, some context. Obviously, with our city election last year, of the 7 positions that were up, 3 of them didn't have any challengers.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to delve into why somebody would run or not run for elective office. But having having a vacancy obviously makes it an easier process as far as not having to run and just being, as an appointed process, just being selected by the council.
Have you discussed this matter with the mayor?
We've had discussions.
Because you're not one of his favorite people, obviously, because you supported his opponent in the last election.
The mayor and I have, listen, I personally separate those things.
Yeah.
It's not a personality issue or anything like that. At that time, I made a political decision about supporting somebody else. Now, if I think since that time, it's been almost 4 years now, 3.5 years since that we've worked well together. Doesn't mean we don't disagree, but I think we've worked well together, as well as the rest of my council colleagues. I mean, that's my, we get along well.
Yeah.
We agree 97% of the time on most things, but there are differences that we have, and I think I've gone about that. When we do disagree, we do it civilly, and we express our point of view, and we see where the votes are, and then we move on. At least that's the way I do it. So I don't see a potential negative there, obviously, with any of my colleagues.
Right.
And hopefully they don't take that and just make a determination about who the best person is to fill this vacancy.
Right.
And that's why I forwarded my name, thinking that if you look at all the factors that I would if I was sitting up there, that it
Well, I looked at the
sense.
list of 25 people, and of the 6 that I know, there's only one or two that I think might have been decent for the job. There is no way they're going to get the support of the city council. It just isn't there. And we don't put somebody anonymous that no one's ever heard of in a powerful seat on the city council, and it is a powerful seat. So, maybe it's not a bad idea that you...
But of the names, since you mentioned names there, John, there has been some people on the list that have run for office.
Richard Doms, he ran for mayor.
He's not the only one. There's others like Mellons ran and has to test with the voters.
Right.
That's something to point out, since there's only a few you mentioned, and maybe some others that I haven't.
Mellons has some issues though with the city, and I'm afraid that I agree. He's a good candidate. He knows the issues that are close to my heart, and that's fire and
Public
safety.
Yeah, the
Public
point
safety.
is, John, he has stood before the voters. That's the point I want to make. And
I see.
What you said.
I think he's the only one.
There are a couple of candidates who've previously run for office
really?
who've put their name in. Yeah.
And that's sort of what you said, the test of the elected person. The person you select, you hope will be serious enough to run for re-election.
Yeah.
Or real election rather than form. And there's a few that have.
Right.
And a few that's had the test of the voters. And I happen to know the Mallett family and just happen to remember them.
All right.
And of course, there's others that I may not be familiar with. And like you say, they did run for elected office.
Name them, Bert.
I don't. I don't name one. You name one, I name one.
Right. And for
Turner.
Yeah, Todd Turner.
and I can say this, pretty confidently. I guess I'm the only candidate who's actually won office, but having been elected 3 times already. But for me, and I did it this way, my discussion with people, not only my council colleagues about whether or not I should do it, but also community leaders, other elected officials, and even speaking with the previous occupant, Ms. Geraldine Valentino Smith. Obviously, she had an opportunity come to her with the House of Delegates seat being open, and I supported her fully. Perfect situation for her. Something that she probably would have done in the future if the opportunity hadn't come so quickly. But it was kind of felt like a good time, for her. And obviously, as a result of her hard work and what she did on the city council and what she did during the campaign, she has proven herself through the election.
Her performance to the voters. Let me ask you this: the next part of the process now. They will serve for how long? We might want to go back, but
Sure. Right now, obviously, depending on when the appointment occurs, right now the way the schedule is, December 3rd was the deadline for getting your interest in, letting the city know. We were scheduled to have interviews on December 13th. The council has now decided, since because of the vast number of people who've applied, we're not going to do that on January 8th, which is the second Saturday.
It's going to be an all-day session?
It's going to be an all-day session. They decided to do it that way, have a whole full day as opposed to just an evening to do it.
What will happen? that day?
Primarily, if we follow the same process that we did on the vacancy that I participated in, each candidate separately will go before the council, express their qualifications and the reasons for their running.
Now you have the written eligibility already.
Yes, obviously the city staff will check, make sure you are eligible for it first. You know, you're a registered voter, you're at least 18 years of age, and you've lived in the city.
And you'll have that available. Will you have, we bring them for interviews individually.
Right.
Will you have their resume each?
Whatever they submitted as part of their application to the council will be available. And just so everybody knows, since I'm a candidate, I'm not part of the process anymore. Obviously, I'm out of it. So I'm not getting any information other than whatever public information that's available.
Well, you're getting information now, no doubt.
Right.
But the process stopped at this point.
Right.
And you won't be in the interview process. Is that correct?
Well, no, I personally will not sit in on any of the other interviews of the other candidates. I will sit in my own interview before the council when I get called. So.
All right. And so it's going to be an all-day session, that's for sure.
I expect it to be, and what will happen, obviously the applicants will explain their qualifications, why they're doing it, why they think they're the best person. The council may have some questions for each of the candidates, and then we'll go through that process. And at the end of that process, then the council will go into an executive session and maybe or maybe not make a decision about.
Will they make a decision of the final number, 4, 5, or just the one? After that one day of interviewing, or whatever it takes.
I'm assuming, and I'm not sure since I'm not really part of the process, but I'm going back on since we're following the same process that we did before. Obviously, there'll be 5 members of the council who will make the decision. It'll be a vote of majority of the 5 members of the council if they can get to a single candidate or single appointee.
I see.
So that's part of the process, and just so everybody knows, it is a political process.
Well, Todd, now that you've explained to us the process, and you've announced that you pretty much think you're the man, you've just had a rather interesting experience. Weren't you in the Rushern Baker campaign?
Yeah, it's earlier this week. Obviously, we just swore in the new county executive, Rushern Baker, and it's obviously it's a very interesting time, to say the least, at the county. But one thing about obviously having new elected officials come in, it's kind of a rebirth. It's a new opportunity you get. And
well, we need it.
Yeah, I would fully agree with you there that, with Rushern, and I've supported him since I first came to the county. I told people this story during the course of the campaign. One of the first elected officials I ever met was Rushern, and it just happened by chance. I was at another fundraising event. It was actually outside the county, and he was there, and got to speaking with him. Similar background. He had come from the Northeast and came down here, made a life for himself, and I had just come down here from New York. And his first comment was, "Well, why don't you come and see me and see what we can do for you?" While he was still in the House of Delegates. Yeah. I compare that to the first experience I had with a city elected official who's no longer a city elected official. The comment was, he asked me where I lived and then said, "Well, good, now you can't run against me." So, so that was the manner in which I was exposed to politics in Prince George's County, and obviously Rushern, through his efforts over the last 8 years, and obviously having run 3 times, so it's been successful. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to move forward.
It has to be. We have a budget coming up.
Right.
The city is in better financial shape per capita than is the county, but there's still a lot of financial need, isn't there?
There still is, and obviously, we were just discussing earlier with the city council, starting to do our discussion about the budget for next year, for fiscal year 12. And obviously, a lot of factors go into our analysis.
Do you see a tax increase coming?
As part of the discussion from staff, there was a discussion about potential tax increase for next year. I can say, obviously, I set down the principles that I said I would live by during the course of that discussion of the budget. I think that there are efficiencies that we can do, that we can look at the way we do things in the city. To make us more efficient, so we don't have to go back to the taxpayers and ask them for additional taxes.